People be talking shit about the bus, but think about it. I'm in a $500,000 car with all my homies, bro. Where the fuck you doing with your life?
I stopped posting on here for the last 6 months, and what I have learned in that time period was that I am a lesbian, I am morbidly depressed, and I am quite beautiful. So that's it.
There's a Category 5 hurricane out in the Gulf of Mexico getting ready to make landfall somewhere between Tampa, Sarasota, and Fort Myers. I grew up in Sarasota. I just moved to Atlanta 2 weeks ago. I drove up during a hurricane. And people keep asking me the spiritual implications of the storm because I am a very well-known spiritual consultant and I've built my platform off of sharing my knowledge. And I want y'all to understand, as a spiritualist, I will never be so far removed from science. I will never be so far removed from politics that I have no common sense and understanding of reality. The spiritual implications of the storm are greed. You want to know the spirits running the storm? Greed. It is capitalistic colonial greed. It is the improper cultivation of land stolen from the indigenous people who knew how to care for the land. It is the polluting of the land. And now this is the response of the land. It's climate change. Keep asking me, Jasmine, do you think it's a message from the ancestors? Yes, climate change. It's the fact that they worked as hard as they did to fucking survive so we could exist, just for us to be complacent in the fucking up of the planet. It's climate change. Y'all keep asking, do I think it's a collective download? Of course, it's climate change.
Imagine being so racist that you invent an incredibly specific mental illness just to rationalise your bigotry. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Katie, your friendly neighbourhood social scientist and host of the history podcast Who Did What Now, providing another piece of horrible history this October. During the civil rights movement in the US back in the 1960s, white doctors discovered a very particular form of schizophrenia. A condition which only occurred in the black population, males in particular, resulting in schizophrenia diagnoses in angry black men skyrocketing during this period. The primary and most common symptom of, again, this incredibly specific form of paranoid schizophrenia was delusional anti-whiteness. Because apparently minorities wanting the exact same rights as their white counterparts, or as we like to call them, basic human rights, is delusional anti-whiteness. Okay. The sheer amount of these diagnoses going out leads to this influx and a disproportionately large amount of black men being committed to mental institutions, labelling them as crazy and perpetuating this negative stereotype.
In a society that frequently prioritizes white voices, the dismissal of black leftist or black socialist perspectives is very harmful. It's crucial to recognize that urging someone to listen to black voices cannot be limited to the narratives of black liberals. This perspective neglects the broader picture of black socialist thought that plays a vital role in addressing systemic inequalities. The marginalization of black socialists by their black liberal counterparts not only ignores important historical contributions, but also isolate those that are wanting a more radical change. This erasure of black socialists is not only just a political oversight, but it's also anti-blackness. Acting like black political thought exists as a monolith undermines the complexity of black identity. Listen to Black voices should include black socialists as well. Many of you will quote Malcolm X, Angela Davis, but your politics are not the same as theirs, and it's like y'all don't even realize that. There are black socialists on here whose voices get suppressed so much. And it isn't until like a white socialist will say something, the exact same thing that black socialists have been saying, that it gets traction like this. And the dogpiling starts, and we see how y'all really feel about radical thought. But the targeting will never happen to a leftist that happens to be a POC, because that will just shatter the foundation of liberal identity politics if they did that. I just feel like it's so lazy to twist the narratives of some of these leftists to accuse them of being anti-black when black leftists know that these people aren't. Now, am I saying that white leftists don't have issues? No, they do. They do tend to be quite reductionist in a lot of their analysis. But what's happening right now is the weaponization of identity politics. That's all.
You depend on our protection.
Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. This is your friendly but strongly worded reminder that knowing whose land you're occupying is not a fun fact. The whole purpose of knowing whose land you're occupying too is to know whose community you're accountable to. So if you don't know whose land you're occupying today, 1, look it up. 2, see if that community has any specific wants, needs, places to donate, and act accordingly. Do they have a social media account? Are you following it? Are there certain community events that they want people to go to? So take time to do that today, especially if you have the day off. Thank you for your support of Indigenous people. Love you.
Will I never truly be free as long as I continue to speak in English? None of you really asked, but let's talk about this for a second. This is Shakespeare. He wrote a play called The Tempest. The Tempest is a play about a powerful wizard called Prospero who finds himself exiled on an island somewhere, and the island is inhabited by native people. The play is about Prospero using his magic and vibing for a bit before eventually he makes peace with his enemies and regains his rightful place as ruler. This is Aimé Césaire. Césaire wrote a retelling of Shakespeare's play called A Tempest. In Césaire's retelling, the focus shifts from the perspective of Prospero to the inhabitants, the natives of the island that Prospero would find himself shipwrecked on. In Césaire's retelling, Caliban, one of the inhabitants of the island, is given a lot more agency. Now, first of all, shout out to this video for reminding me about Césaire's Tempest. I have read this before, but I completely forgot about it until I saw this video, so go watch it, it's wonderful, I'll tag it below. But I was in an English class during my undergrad, and we were reading this version of The Tempest, and we got to the ending, and I said that there is much to be optimistic about regarding the ending, because it ends with Caliban, the slave, singing a song of freedom. The play ends with us hearing Caliban screaming in the distance that he is now free, and at the time I interpreted that to mean that there is much to be optimistic about. Caliban is now free. A classmate of mine pushed back against that, and she suggested that no, Caliban is not free because he is yelling about his freedom in the language of his oppressors. And this is an important point because Caliban's opening line in the play is he says something in his native language, and Prospero, his master, the oppressor, shuts him down for it and tells him that he should stop speaking in that language and speak in a language that they can both understand. And so there's this contrast that's made here where Caliban's first line is in his language and he is beaten down for it, but his final line is in the language of his oppressor. And my classmate believed that this means that Caliban is not actually free. And I pushed back against that and said that, well, I'm speaking English, and I don't think that means that I am not free. I think that what it means is that on the road to freedom, we lose something of ourselves in the process. And that is true for many people who were formerly colonized, and it is true for a character like Caliban. My classmate did not push back any further. I don't know if she was convinced. I was convinced at the time. This memory came back to me the other day, and I was thinking about it again, because I wonder if I would make a similar point today. Because on the one hand, it is true, I, like many people from former colonies, speak and write and work in the language of the colonial power that ruled my country for a certain amount of time. But does this mean that we truly are not free, or does it mean that we really do just lose something of ourselves in the process, but today we have something close to freedom? Now, we won't do it today, but there's a whole conversation we can have about decolonization and language. For example, we can evoke the work of Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who suggests that in order to decolonize the mind, we need to have a shift from writing in colonial languages to writing in African languages. To Ngugi, true liberation involves a liberation of the mind, and this liberation involves using African languages as tools for resistance, tools for writing literature, tools for making meaning in the world, and so true decolonization will involve a move away from colonial languages. That is one perspective. Another perspective takes into account the fact that languages by nature are very malleable. And despite the fact that English is the language of the British, in many ways, English means many different things to many different people today. Nigerians have taken English and have created new things out of it that the British might not even be able to understand. That is what languages do. On some level, being a language Puritan is almost oxymoronic because, as far as I'm aware, there's no such thing as a pure language that's been untouched by nothing else. And so from this perspective, things like English and French become African languages because Africans use them for meaning making in the world today. These are all conversations that we can have, and we'll have them some other time. But for today, the question that we are left with is,
so did y'all know that Tupac Shakur was named after one of history's greatest indigenous resistance leaders? The name Tupac comes from the Quechua language spoken by the Incan people of this region in South America. In the language, Tupac means royal or shining, and one of the most prominent historical figures to carry that name was Tupac Amaru II. He led one of the largest uprisings against Spanish colonial rule in order to free his people from the brutal system of taxation and forced labor imposed upon them. So on November 4th, 1780, he captured and killed a Spanish official, starting a rebellion alongside his wife, Micaela Bastidas. And his movement quickly grew with thousands of indigenous people rising up to support. And interestingly, his vision didn't just affect indigenous rights, he also called for the abolition of slavery and generally better human rights for everyone, inviting African slaves and mestizos to join him in his fight. But after a year of intense rebellion, he was captured, his family was killed, and his body was mutilated and desecrated, which the Spanish hoped would crush all forms of resistance. But they were wrong, and he became a martyr and a symbol of fighting against oppression across the world. So much so that centuries later, Black liberation activist Afeni Shakur specifically named her son after this Incan revolutionary to inspire within him the desire to fight for justice. If you learned something new, please share and follow for more.
Happy Indigenous Peoples Day! A lot of people ask me my ethnicity on here, and I know I like to tease you guys and not tell you or tell you to guess, but I do want to talk about my heritage today. So I'm a mix of like a lot of stuff, but I was raised in a Chamorro household. Chamorro people are the native people of the island Guam or Guahan near Japan and the Philippines. It's very tiny, it's not even like visible on the globe. My family moved to America from Guam in like the 90s, which would make me first generation American, but Guam is a US territory. Guam has been colonized by a lot of different countries. First the Spanish, who wiped out about 95% of our population, and then America got hold of us. And then in World War II, Japan, who also just did really atrocious stuff. And then the US came and saved the day. You know, they got Japan out. And then America took all of our land without paying us and made it into a military base. So Guam is now a US territory. Chamorro people were denied citizenship despite Guam being a US territory until the 1950s when we were granted partial citizenship. Basically, people from Guam can serve in the US military but cannot vote for president. I wish talking about my land didn't piss me off so much and make me hate America even more. So anyway, okay, I want to say some good stuff now. I love my family. I love being a Pacific Islander. One of my favorite values culturally that Pacific Islanders have is that of reciprocation. There seems to be no lack mentality when it comes to Pacific Islanders. Our culture is so freely giving, especially when it comes to like giving people food. Speaking of food, Chamorro food is insane. This is what my family cooks. We've got Chamorro barbecue. This is called chicken kelaguen, which is like coconut lemon chicken with like green onion, and doni, which is like spicy peppers. We got red rice, which is made with achoti, which is like a seed that they also use to make red dye, but it gives it a really strong color and like a nutty flavor. This is pickled papaya, and these are, I don't even know, these are just the cucumbers. And my favorite, finadeni. It is lemon soy sauce. Oh my god, it is so freaking good. So that's a little bit about my culture and about the land where my family comes from. I've never even been to Guam because of tourism and how expensive it is, but I'm planning to go soon. I love my culture. I love my family. Fuck America. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day.
Jewish Hatsune Miku says, doikite. But what does that mean? What is a doikite? Doikite is a Yiddish word that roughly translates to here-ness. It was a term coined in the late 1890s by an Eastern European Jewish socialist labor organization known as the Jewish Labor Bund. The concept of doikite emphasizes the here-ness of diaspora, as in Jews have a duty to stay wherever we are and live amongst other people and fight anti-Semitism in the countries we lived in, as opposed to relying upon the safety and security of a nation-state to defeat anti-Semitism. They were a pre-war non-Zionist organization. One of the slogans that they liked to use was, wherever we live, that is our homeland. And they emphasized again the here-ness of diaspora as opposed to the there-ness of Israel. A lot of people who know of the Bund tend to think of it as a dead organization, but in a lot of ways the Bund never died, and there is a concerted effort to this day to bring the Bund back to its former glory, with an emphasis on doikite and tikkun olam. And doikite, for me, also means hope. A hope of a future world where Judaism isn't so deeply intertwined with nationalism. Hope for a Judaism that understands the difference between Eretz Yisrael and Medinat Yisrael. And hope for a Judaism that understands that Jerusalem can be any city, anywhere, as long as you are yearning for it to be safe, as long as you're yearning for it to be sheltered in God's peace. Doikite for me too is a prayer for God to take the hearts of stone for many of my peers and to replace it with a heart of flesh. It is a prayer for an end to senseless hatred, and it is a prayer for the end to all suffering. Hatsune Miku says doikite because Hatsune Miku is everywhere, and that's the beauty of her.
Being a wheelchair user who does dabble in leaving my house, I get a lot of fuck-ass strangers who approach me with their most burning questions. And most of the time this does just end up being what happened, but some, the more poetic minds of society, they occasionally come at me with much more of a beautifully crafted sentence, and it usually goes a lot like this. What's wrong with you? It's not the greatest, but it's not the most common, so I've decided, in the spirit of opportunities, and fucking with the public even more than I already do, the next time this happens to me, I'm just gonna start listing shit that has nothing to do with my disability. One way this could play out, I'm actually just gonna fucking act it out. Give me a minute. Oh, hun, like, do you mind me asking what's wrong with you? I grew up without a microwave, okay? And yes, now I am equally as fascinated and infatuated with them as confused and intimidated. I do not know how to work the buttons, and I don't think I ever will, because I think the critical learning period for it has passed. I can barely do simple math. I am more crippled in mathematics than I may even be in my legs, and yes, the need to do simple subtraction will absolutely, and without a doubt, ruin my day. No, I didn't mean. I fucking love Pearl Jam, and I have no clue what that goddamn man is saying. Stop. I only have two reactions to getting scared, and one of them is just to clap. One of them is to throw a punch, but the other is just to clap, and I don't know which one I will do if attacked. I may just throw one singular applaud. Just one, in the face of my attacker. Anyways, thank you. This is not a tried and true method yet. So let me know in the comments if you do want any updates as to how quickly the able-bodied person can run. That will ask me this next. Thank you. Stay tuned.
Dear white leftist influencer, Black people don't feel welcome in your leftist spaces. The pushback you receive is not a liberal plot against you, but a reflection of the fact that you created a space that we don't belong in. You built a following from your vision and actions rooted in your theoretical knowledge, but you sold us your practical impact. You centered your expertise on topics that our backs had to break for you to learn. You treated our revolutionaries as trivia facts and our beloved communicators as cautionary tales. You pick at our common pains, but don't reference us in the solution. White leftists, speaking of class warfare devoid of critical race perspective, are preparing to use Black and Indigenous bodies as projectiles and stepping stones, intentionally or not. You speak of a hypothetical world that has not yet been prepared, and you're insulated from some of the most insidious impacts of this world. So when a Black woman speaks and organizes and votes to make it slightly less likely that this world can gun another person's brother down, put a cop's foot on the back of our necks, or watch our homes be taken from us, we don't need a person who's not living in community with the people most threatened by this world to examine the motives of someone who is. White leftist influencers have created communities that devour themselves because your communities value purity over practicality. Purity is only possible when your privilege allows you to focus on surviving the future and question those people seeking to survive the day, even when your ultimate goals align. You can wait for your ideal because the present is less likely to kill you. That's the running invisible disclaimer that you fail to highlight for your followers. That you speak from a place of privilege about people endowed with less privilege from a place of moral high ground. Any space where that happens is not a space where we belong. I hope that helps. Sincerely.
If you ever visited Palestine, you wouldn't be alive. You're right. Could this be because the entire territory is being bombed and invaded by the apartheid monstrosity you support? Good job grasping the ghost of basic logic in your Lego claw hands. No, I mean you would be despised for being LGBTQ over there. Oh, okay, but not here though, in the United States of Eagle Caw, where gay and trans kids are forced into conversion camps or attacked in the street. Here is fine. No, what's important is you might hypothetically have gotten punched in the face for having short hair if you ever were to hypothetically visit Palestine. Hypothetically. Oh, okay, yeah, so this hypothetical scenario, this imaginary scenario that has not happened to me, justifies the billions of dollars of our tax money going overseas to fund the mass murder of an entire people, most of whom are children, as their land is stolen right before our eyes. After being burned and bulldozed, I mean. Billions of tax dollars mean protection for us from the mean people. The mean people trying to obtain shelter and safe drinking water and flour. Listen, you shouldn't care about them. They're all the way over there. That's at least a mile away. Well, we're sending a lot of money to the people killing them. It's money. It has to go somewhere. I see, just not to our neighbors in Appalachia or Florida. No, of course not. Here's an idea. Go marinate in your own expectorated phlegm, where you belong, and quit wasting my time with your callousness, because your constant irrelevant arguments are going to break your lungs, and then you would no longer be able to engage in your favorite hobby of oxygen theft. You strange, malicious clown.
A Texas county is forcing librarians to move this book from nonfiction to fiction, Colonization and the Wampanoag Story. Written by Wampanoag tribe historian Linda Coombs, tells the real story of the brutalization of the Wampanoag people by European settlers. But now, Montgomery County's Citizens Review Committee, which replaced librarians, reclassified it. After the book was challenged on September 10th, the committee ordered that it be moved by October 17th, without any public explanation. Critics say this decision oversteps the committee's authority, especially since the book is officially classified as nonfiction by the Library of Congress and other libraries. This all happened after a group called Two Moms and Some Books, led by Michelle Knuckles, successfully lobbied the Montgomery County Commission to change the policy and put non-librarians in charge. And in case you have any confusion about their goals, their slogan is "Make Libraries Great Again." The new Citizens Review Committee meets in secret, and their decisions are final with no appeals process. Local bookstore owner Teresa Kenny is fighting back, calling for librarian oversight and open meetings. But her request was shut down at a recent county commissioner meeting. Let us know what you think in the comments. This is popular information. Read the full report on popular.info and follow along here for more accountability journalism.